Warhammer 40k lore in the Bible, where I pull from Warhammer 40k lore to help explain biblical lore. And today we're going to be going over Erebus of the Word Bearers Traitor Legion, also, one of the Dark Apostles and of the Dark Council as well. Before we get into the video, take the wikis with a grain of salt. They're definitely not perfect, and there's a lot of stuff retconned and not canon anymore and stuff like that. But we're going to use it as kind of the basis for the biblical lore, right? But anyways, I also do 2 regular biblical videos, Mondays and Tuesdays, when I can. And if that's not for you, every Thursday is the Warhammer 40k lore series, and then Saturday and Sundays are more Warhammer 40k content. But anyways, let's get into the video. Okay. Erebus is a senior Dark Apostle of the Word Bearers Traitor Legion. He originally held the prestigious position of First Chaplain of the Word Bearers Space Marine Legion. At the end of the Great Crusade, and during the Horus Heresy in the early 31st millennium, he was a fearsome and intimidating Astartes warrior, and had tattooed whole sections of the Book of Lorgar across his shaven scalp to terrify his enemies. Erebus had willingly turned to the service of chaos even before he had ascended to become an Astartes, and was personally responsible for the corruption of his own legion's Primarch Lorgar, Horus, and the death guard of First Captain Callus Typhon to the worship and service of the Ruinous Powers. Erebus refers to himself as the Hand of Destiny, the mortal instrument of the Chaos Gods in the material realm. Erebus is presently one of the Dark Apostles that comprise the ruling Dark Council of the Word Bearers Traitor Legion on their daemon world of Sakaris, and fights a subtle but constant war against the Black Cardinal, Cor Farion, for control of the 17th Legion's direction in his Primarch's continued absence. Alright, so now we're going to get into the history. The boy who would become Erebus was born to common parents on the world of Colchis in the late 30th millennium. Even at the young age, he felt it was his purpose to manipulate, deceive, and sow discord among his fellows. He felt a thrill testing his own limits with such immoral acts, which as a boy first manifested in his teasing and torturing of Colchis desert scorpions. That's where it always starts, doesn't it? Anyways, his parents often scolded him for his troublesome behavior and lack of educational achievements like his peers, comparing him in particular to the boy who was the pride of the village, a highly religious and studious child named Erebus. Taking his parents' advice to be more like Erebus, perhaps a little too literally, the boy strangled the more accomplished child with a garrote and replicated Erebus's facial tattoos. Taking Erebus's identity for his own, the boy departed his village and became an aspiring priest of the Covenant of Colchis in the planetary capital of Vardesh, or the capital city of Vardesh. Erebus cared little for his religious studies at first, but gradually began to appreciate their spiritual insights. One day he saw his face reflected in 4 parts within a cracked mirror. Uh-oh. Here we go. And he realized in that instant that the gods of the Covenant, who were actually the Ruinous Powers, had always been with him and guided his actions. Erebus became a devout servant of chaos thereafter, mastering the tenets of the old faith of Colchis, which had always simply been yet another of the myriad guises of chaos worship. When the Covenant of Colchis fell to the control of Lorgar and his followers, Erebus went into hiding for a time before re-emerging as an acolyte of the Primarch's new direction for the faith. When the Emperor arrived on Colchis, Erebus was already well aware of his threat to the Chaos Gods as the being they named the Anathema, and was the only mortal on Colchis not overcome by his glory and psychic aura. Instead, Erebus felt exhilaration at seeing the man he knew that he would one day bring low. As a servant of Lorgar, Erebus was among the young Colchizians, who was transformed into a space marine of the Imperial Herald's Legion, my goodness, in the first intake of native Colchizians shortly after. By the time Lorgar named the 17th Legion the Word Bearers, Erebus had already set into motion the Dark God's plans to stop the Emperor from initiating a new golden age for humanity that would see their influence greatly diminished. At the end of the Great Crusade, Erebus held the prestigious position of first chaplain of the Word Bearers Legion. He was a fearsome and intimidating Astartes warrior, with whole sections of the Book of Lorgar tattooed across his shaven scalp to terrify his enemies. But when Lorgar grew angry with his father after he and the 17th Legion were chastised on the world of Kur with the destruction of the perfect city of Monarchia, I think that's how you say that, or Monarchia, but probably Monarchia, or Monarchia. Anyways, for trying to spread worship of the Emperor of Mankind as a divinity across the galaxy, Erebus was ready. Uh-oh. I hate when it does this. He explained to his master, alongside Lorgar's foster father, first Captain Cor Farion, that there were other entities in the universe that were more than willing to accept his worship and the worship of other humans. Several solar decades before the outbreak of the Horus heresy, Lorgar, Cor Farion, and Erebus had fully corrupted the Word Bearers to the service of chaos, even going so far as to erect temples to the dark gods on every world they brought into the imperial compliance. Before long, the Ruinous Powers sought to act through Erebus to set their plan in motion to destroy the Imperium of Man and the greatest champion of order in the galaxy, the Emperor of Mankind, the Big E. To achieve this outcome for his dark masters, just before the Imperial War with the Interrex began during the final stages of the Great Crusade, Erebus began to have many secretive dealings amongst the Luna Wolves Legion and with War Master Horus in particular. In fact, it was he who sabotaged the peaceful negotiations and precipitated the war between the Imperium and the Interrex by stealing the archaic Kindbrach anathema artifact from the Interrex's closely guarded hall of weapons. The theft of this blade was not an act of misplaced greed. It was part of Erebus's carefully managed plan to corrupt the War Master and bring him under the influence of his own secret masters, the Ruinous Powers of Chaos. By supplying the anathema to the traitor planetary governor of the planet Davin, who was subsequently corrupted by Nurgle, Erebus hoped that Horus would be wounded by the weapon and put beyond the care of his legion's apothecaries. Once this had taken place, the grief-stricken Abaddon and Horus Axamond of the Luna Wolves on Mornival were only too keen to turn over their master to Erebus's care, and Horus was resurrected by the dark chaos rituals of the Davinite priests within the dark halls of the Serpent Lodge. During that ceremony, Erebus entered Horus's visions and served as the proxy for the Chaos Gods as they showed Horus visions of the future, intending to inflame the jealousy and arrogant desire for power that had grown within him since the Emperor had left him in charge of the Great Crusade. In the course of this seduction, Horus accepted the offer of the Chaos Gods to rebel against the Emperor. In return, they healed him of his wound. From that day afterwards, Horus Lupercal was the pawn of the Ruinous Powers. Come on. Sorry, guys. Okay. After the War Master's resurrection on Davin, Erebus continued to whisper his lies into Horus's ear, manipulating the Primarch's arrogance, ego, and desire for power and directing him further from the ideas of the Great Crusade. Erebus emboldened his desire to pursue his own ascension to replace the Emperor as the master of mankind. By showing the War Master the powers of the warp and urging him to make pacts with the Chaos Gods, he eventually set Horus on the path to heresy against the Emperor. Along with Horus, Erebus masterminded the Istvan III atrocity, or Istvan III, Istvan III atrocity that resulted in the massacre of the traitor legion's remaining loyalists on that world, as he was ever mindful of the need to eliminate those elements of the traitor legions who still served the Emperor before the war against Terra could begin. Captain Garvio Loken of the Sons of Horus suspected Erebus was a secret traitor to the Imperium, which only led to the corrupt first chaplain to add him to the list of doomed Astarte's brethren who were to be caught in the virus bomb assault on Istvan III. Erebus remained with Horus throughout the Horus heresy, acting as his dark spiritual advisor and co-conspirator. Erebus, however, only ever truly served the dark gods of chaos. Erebus later proved instrumental in the aftermath of the Battle of Calth, when he successfully summoned the Ruin Storm, the great warp storm that effectively split the Imperium in two for the duration of the heresy. During the Shadow Crusade, Erebus manipulated the powerful word-bearer Argel Tal through a series of events that led to his death when Erebus viciously stabbed his anathema dagger into the Crimson Lord's back, killing him. This was because the first chaplain foresaw that the commander of the possessed Chaos Space Marines, known as the Gal Vorbak, and the Vakra Jal, would prevent the Word-Bearer's Legion's first captain, Karn, from achieving his ultimate destiny of becoming the Blessed of Khorne. Such a fate would ensure that the traitors lost the war against the Emperor. As Karn and Tal were close comrades, Erebus was nearly killed by the World Eater once he discovered the first chaplain's hand in his friend's death. Erebus was viciously beaten by Karn before being forced to teleport himself from the World Eater's flagship, the Conqueror. Erebus again suffered humiliation after the Battle of Cygnus Prime, which had been another of his plans to corrupt one of the loyalist Primarchs, in this case Sanguinius of the Blood Angels Legion. Erebus had been warned by Lorgar that this attempt would fail, as Sanguinius would never turn against the Emperor, but he had convinced Horus to order the Blood Angels to Cygnus Prime anyway. Following Sanguinius's victory over the demonic forces that infested the Cygnus cluster, in his anger, Erebus arrogantly blamed Horus for disrupting his plan to convert the Blood Angels and Sanguinius to the surface of chaos. Angered by the Word-Bearer's insolence, Horus flayed Erebus's heavily tattooed facial flesh from a skull with his own athema. 41st Millennium. After the defeat of Horus at the Siege of Terra, Erebus fled into the Eye of Terror with the rest of his legion. Erebus is currently a Dark Apostle of the Word-Bearer's Traitor Legion and a member of the Legion's Dark Council, the ruling body of Sakaris, the demon ruled by the Word-Bearers within the Eye of Terror, or ruled by the Word-Bearers. Erebus is engaged in a near-constant struggle with his ancient rival Kor Pharaon for control of the Word-Bearers as the Legion's demon Primarch. Lorgar remains locked away in deep meditation with the Chaos Gods and has not directly taken leadership role in guiding his legion in centuries. During the 13th Black Crusade of Abaddon the Despoiler in 999 Millennium 41, 999, I guess, led an army of word bearers across the Akkadian sector, sacrificing millions of human captives to summon a vast army of demons to assault Imperial forces at the Akkadian Gate and across the rest of the sector. Alright, guys. So now we're going to move on to the biblical part here. So, we talked about how Nimrod had that garment, right? That made him strong and stuff like that. But now we're going to see here that it's a little bit of a stretch. You know, they're not necessarily the same kind of person, but kinda. Anyways, Genesis 10:8-10. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. So this is a very important part here, because right here, so the word before, it got mixed with confusion and stuff, the meaning of it got confused with the Hebrew version of, confusion and stuff like that, right? Which is Balal, right here. So this is what it was, Bab-ilu, which means gate of the god. So very interesting. And Erech and Akkad, Kalna, and the land of Shinar. Or Akkad, however you say that. Okay. So now we're going to see here, he first started out good, right? Just like Erebus. Well, not necessarily, but he kind of had, let's just say Nimrod had a tendency to go towards the dark side, right? He wasn't the best person, even when he was with God, right? So anyways, let me find it. Okay. And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments. So this is kind of like an exoskeleton kind of thing, right? And God gave him might and strength. And he was a mighty hunter in the earth. Yea, he was a mighty hunter in the field. And he hunted the animals and built altars and offered up upon the animals before the Lord. So here he is. I guess you could say, fighting for, the good side, I guess you could say, right? Even though there is no good side in Warhammer. But anyways. Okay. But we'll see here, he starts corrupting everybody. He goes by the wayside here. Hold on a second. Not by the wayside. He turns, let's just say. Okay. Where is it? So when he said, okay, and whilst he was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies around, and advised his counselors to build a city for his palace, they did so. Okay, where is it? Here we go. And all nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him. And they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their lord and king. And they all dwelt with him in the city of Shinar. So this is where he built that Babel, right? And Nimrod reigned in the earth over the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. But Nimrod did not go in the ways of the Lord. This is right. This is where he turns. He was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days. By the way, this is the book of Jasher, chapter 7, by the way. Okay. And he made gods of wood and stone. So this is kind of where he turns to the chaos gods, you could say, right? Uh-oh. Not right now. Okay. Yeah, this is where he kind of turns to the chaos gods, right? You could say, in the biblical sense. And he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against the Lord. And he taught all his subjects, right, and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardon his son was more wicked than his father. This is where he turns, right? And he goes and he builds this Bab-ilu, right? The gate of the god, which then turned into, Babel, because this is where he confused the languages, right? We all know the story. So now we're going to talk about the Eye of Terror in Sakaris, their homeworld, right? So now we're back to Warhammer 40k lore. Sakaris is a demon world located deep within the Eye of Terror, and is the current home world of the Word-Bearers Traitor Legion. The planet was conquered by the Word-Bearers after the Horus Heresy, when the forces of chaos were driven by the forces of the Imperium into the Eye of Terror, and has been occupied as such for 10,000 standard years. So if we see what the Eye of Terror is, the Eye of Terror, called Ocularis Terribus in High Gothic, which is Latin, right? Or basically, from what I have been told, is a massive warp rift in permanent warp storm, approximately 20,000 light years across, a nexus of psychic energy in physical space-time where the immaterium coexists with real space. So, this is exactly what this is. Right? He builds that tower, right? And there's probably a reason why they built it for height, right? They were trying to, pierce the veil per se, right? And have a city where they had constant contact, right, with, you can say, the gods, right? Kind of like the Eye of Terror. So, quite interesting. Okay, it is the largest and most well-known warp rift in the Milky Way galaxy. By the way, this book is a great book. It's called The Eye of Terror. It's a great book, by the way. One of my favorites so far. Okay. It is the largest and most well-known warp rift in the Milky Way galaxy, and is located at the rimward edge of the galaxy to the galactic northwest of Terra, in the Segmentum Obscurus. It is the home to the largest concentration of the forces of chaos in real space, including the traitor legions of Chaos Space Marines that fled Terra after the end of the Horus Heresy. So we'll go ahead and end it here. But another way to look at this too is kind of connecting that, you can say, the world of chaos, right? Or darkness in the Bible, right? And the material realm together, right? So, anyways, let's go ahead and end it there. Thank you guys for watching, and you guys have a wonderful day.